Oh, hello there, yes. Well, safely wrapped in the arms of the weekend. Yeah, you can tell I've had some time off work because, well, I'm feeling quite relaxed, yes. I'm not a great fan of work, but I'm also not necessarily a great fan of not working. So what I need to do is find a job where I can go to work and not do anything. And if only there was a profession like teaching that I could go into. Anyway, leaving that aside, I thought today we'd have a vague sort of poke in the ribs of Robert Jenrick, who is a man that, well, deserves a poke in the ribs, doesn't he? Because he's a lovely man, isn't he? Stout patriot that he is. I was writing in the Daily Telegraph. I mean, he's a kind of de facto conservative leader, realistically, isn't he? That's the ultimate ambition, isn't it? Yes. And I might come back to the conservative leader in just a moment, but we had this from Mr. Jenrick. Mass migration is putting British women and girls in danger. According to the data, 40% of sexual assaults committed in London last year were by foreign nationals. Yes. You'll notice the that particular phrase as well. But that got me thinking about British women and girls being in danger, because I don't know, it does seem to be a sort of a recurring motif amongst, concerned citizens or patriotic people just asking questions, that we have to have British women and girls. Presumably anyone born in Britain who is female is a British woman and girls, according to this. I mean, Robert Jenrick obviously wouldn't just simply go for a kind of racist dog whistle that makes him sound like the Ku Klux Klan. One is reminded perhaps of Blazing Saddles, where we can ask, where do white women at? Yes? Robert Jenrick obviously wouldn't do that, and certainly the Daily Telegraph as a responsible paper just simply wouldn't do that. But it's worthwhile putting the other things in this picture into that sort of context as well, because we've got a picture of a lifeboat, which isn't what you normally associate London with. It's kind of red double-decker buses, the London Eye, Houses of Parliament, vicious knife crime, Sadiq Sadiq Khan laughing at all of it. All that's what you think of when you think of London, don't you? Yeah. This is actually a picture of the Eastbourne lifeboat, which is certainly at least 50 miles away from London. So I don't know, maybe they've started doing excursions from, the London Eye Pier or something. I don't know, but there we can put that one in. So we've got that nasty sexual threat from foreigners, and we've got the boats, which of course we can put those things together, and immediately we think of all those people coming across on boats who are all putting British women and girls in danger. You see, we need to put those two together. There is no reason to have that picture of the Eastbourne lifeboat there, but somebody has decided to do that at the Daily Telegraph. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for putting that image in my head. I can't make those connections myself. I'm too stupid. Yes, and then we come on to the actual statistic, right? 40% of sexual assaults committed in London last year were by foreign nationals, and foreign nationals has become one of those sort of choice phrases. It's like foreign born. Whenever you want to sort of say brown people without actually saying brown people, but by God you mean brown people, you use those figures because, of course, the problem with foreign born, for example, it does include people like, Boris Johnson, ex-Tory MP. We'll come back again to that notion as well. We lump all these people together. But, well, according to statistics, 40% of Londoners, people that live in London, were indeed foreign born. So does that mean that Robert Jenrick is basically complaining that a group of people have statistics applied to them which are in a per capita basis? Is that what he's saying here? Is that it? In which case, I don't know. So in other words, I'm no more likely to be sexually assaulted by a foreign national in London than by anyone else. Is that what Robert Jenrick is saying? Because it appears that way, according to the statistics. It would be nice, I think, if somebody in the media could actually ask him some of these questions. I mean, we did have Nick Ferrari the other day asking Sarah Pagine such things because she was making stuff up for political ends using, well, stout patriots, of course. Yes, we can't use certain words, can we? Because that's wrong, isn't it? Because nobody in this country is anything other than a concerned citizen or a stout patriot. And certainly not, people aspiring to be leaders of the Conservative Party. But when we look at actual MPs themselves, just to look at them as a group of people, and we're talking perhaps here about, alien cultures to us, looking at the last Parliament, we do end up with a very, very large large number of MPs across the board. I mean, mainly in the Conservative Party, but because they were the largest party, but across the board, who were accused of things like bullying. Loads of Robert's friends and neighbours, one might say, in the Conservative Party, and indeed sexual assault. You can think of Peter Bone and some of the others that squirmed around getting their wives elected instead. And, I mean, the figure of 56 people from the last Parliament has been disputed, but nevertheless, there were a lot of them, certainly a far higher percentage than, the sexual assault one-to-one per capita basis of foreign nationals in London. So does that mean that there is something intrinsic to, the culture of the House of Commons and indeed the culture of the Conservative Party, like Robert Jenrick, in the House of Commons that makes them more likely to sexually assault people or indeed just generally be bullies? I think there is, personally, but does that mean, therefore, that we need to be worried about sitting in the same room as a Conservative MP? I mean, I personally always am worried sitting in the same room as any MP because they're a shifty bunch. End of. Especially the current crop of Labour MPs. I'd happily go for tea with Jeremy Corbyn. I wouldn't, in any way, shape, or form, think that I'd come out alive of having tea with Robert Jenrick or indeed Lee Anderson, or indeed any of the others. I mean, we can potentially apply these particular notions about a spurious culture, to the Reform Party and look at the monstrous mess that there is there. Let's think of, Rupert Lowe, who was thrown out of the party for bullying, wasn't he, as well as some other nefarious things? Or is that being disproved now? Because I'm very confused. I mean, does that mean he can come back to the party now? Are we all okay with that? And of course, there's James very dodgy one, isn't there? Yes, now an independent. Oh yeah, don't bother having a by-election, mate. Just rake in that money, eh? Can you imagine having that guy as your local MP? Jesus, I don't think somehow they're going to win that seat again, are they? Anyway, him with an actual conviction, I wouldn't want to be in the same room with that particular human. But that does bring us, as I say, to Rupert Lowe, who posted up this yesterday on Twitter. The more work and research I do, looking things up, finding stuff in my Twitter feed. Wow, I do into the Pakistani rape gangs. The more I believe the death penalty should be restored in exceptionally monstrous cases. Yeah, a good choice of words there with exceptionally, because I think that's a kind of get out of jail free card, because there were some Conservative MPs who, committed some exceptionally appalling things in Parliament last year. Should they go to the chair? Metaphorically or otherwise, maybe the chair's too good for them. I think it might be a good idea. But when you actually again do some digging, that whole research thing, you discover that loads and loads of members of various dodgy far-right parties have been done for things like child porn. So maybe we should take that in, and maybe we should do that. I think that would work. I'd certainly vote for that. How's that? But you can see that an awful lot of Tory MPs will be cacking their pants at that particular one, wouldn't they? Not to mention certain other MPs as well, just to make it across the board. Yes? And finally, coming to perhaps the nub of the matter, we had this yesterday from Kemi Badenoch, who says that she no longer identifies as Nigerian, which is one of those weird things. I didn't think you could identify as these kind of things at all. Or am I wrong about that? Maybe I need to ask Connor Tomlinson about how people are allowed to identify, because I do personally identify as being English, even though he would probably disagree that I am, because I don't do or read the right things about the 17th century or something. But if Kemi Badenoch is no longer Nigerian because she just fancies it, does that mean that we can just, self-identify? I don't know. Being a woman, maybe. It raises all sorts of questions. And primarily, the question I'd like answered from Robert Jenrick is, does Kemi Badenoch, being a foreign-born person, is she more of a threat? Is she more of a threat? What statistical basis should it be? Should I be worried about the fact that she's leader of the party simply because she's a foreigner? I think Robert should be asked these questions, because of course there is no answer, because there's no answer to dog whistle racism. And this is what we're being presented with every day. The answer to all of our problems, no matter how minor they are, is always, well, we'll just reduce the number of brown people. Pie in the sky politics is not going to happen, and we can see this with Reform Party, and this is the reason why this far out from the election I'm going to make a bold assertion, which means I'm bound to be wrong, of course. I'm going to make a bold assertion that they're just not going to win the next election, okay? Because people who want to support those kind of nasty Robert Jenrick style dog whistle racism will realise quite quickly that they're not going to get that from Reform, because these ideas are unworkable. Bring back the death penalty for those things, by all means. But loads of Tommy Robinson's mates would go down under that particular rule. And I don't mind slimming out that gene pool. There you go. See, I can be as hardline as I want to be. After all of us lefties are, aren't we? Yeah. But if you want to go there, then go there. But you have to accept, don't you, that those rules have to be applied. After all, that would only be fair and right, wouldn't it? We can't have the whole Lucy Connolly situation whereby people that get banged up for incitement to violence somehow are allowed off scot-free. Or maybe not. Maybe if you're a mum, that doesn't count, which lets Kemi Baden off. But then what happens if you're a father? Oh, so many questions to ask Mr. Jenrick, and of course nobody will, because that isn't the game that's being played. Anyway, do have a glorious Saturday. Do stay dry, because it's going to be all stormy. Yeah, there's a metaphor there. Ooh, yes. Think of a literary phrase. Yes. Pathetic fallacy. Enjoy.